today. But before we get started on our presentation, I just want to make some opening remarks. I'd like to start off by thanking our PBCJA board. They've all worked so hard this year to get these webinars going. Our CLE committee, and of course our executive director, Christy Fox, who has been instrumental in getting these up and going and getting the CLE credit for these webinars. So thank you everyone who has helped us. I also want to thank our annual advocates. They have been incredibly supportive of us as we get these webinars going. I know we haven't been able to have the in-person events that we were hoping to be able to have this year. So we encourage everyone to please take their calls if they call you and want to get to know you. Please refer to our invites and our website for our advocates when you're looking for vendors. They give us so much support throughout the year, and I just ask that everyone give them, their support back. I also want to just make a quick reminder for everyone to please mute their microphones. If you're not a speaker today, please mute your microphone because it just creates too much background noise for everyone. I also want to ask everyone to please list their full name on their screen. If you don't know how to do that, you can click on the top right-hand corner of your individual screen and click on the 3 dots. It'll give you the option to rename yourself. It's just important for us to be able to track, who is in our webinars. We will be giving the CLE credit at the end, towards the end of the presentation. When we do, please write it down, screenshot it, whatever you need to do. We're not able to give out the CLE code after the fact. So please do whatever you need to save the CLE code. And I think that's it for the opening remarks. We have an incredible program today that I think is going to be really helpful for everyone as we see the numbers increase in our state and in our county. These webinars have become even more important. We don't know when we're going to be going back to normal. We don't know what normal is going to ever be like. So finding ways to continue to practice under these circumstances and to run our practices, our firm, to be able to market, to be able to keep our brand going and out there is really, really important. So we are really thankful for the opportunity to be able to have this webinar. And for today's presentation, we have an incredible moderator. We have Ashley Eagle from the Lesser Landy Smith law firm. Ashley started her career helping out homeowners who had been wrongfully foreclosed on, but since 2016, she has been representing injured clients and their families. She has done an incredible job with the PBCJA. She started off as a young lawyer. She then chaired the Young Lawyers Board. She's now co-chairing the women's section, the newly created women's section, and she's now on the big board. So Ashley is one of our superstars, rising stars, and so we're very thankful for her to be able to take the time out today to serve as our moderator. So with that said, Ashley, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Adriana, for that introduction. I have the honor today of introducing our 2 presenters. Michael Mogill is founder and CEO of Crisp Video Group, the nation's fastest growing legal video marketing company, and the author of The Game Changing Attorney and host of the Game Changing Attorney podcast. He's helped thousands of attorneys, from solo and small firms to large practices, differentiate themselves from competitors and earn millions in new revenue. Crisp has been named to the Inc. 500 list of America's fastest growing companies and has been awarded Best Places to Work. A sought-after speaker, Michael often presents at national conferences on innovative ways to create exponential business growth. We also have Brian LaBovick today. Brian LaBovick was admitted to the Florida Bar in 1990 and started his career as an honor graduate program inductee at the United States Department of Justice as a federal prosecutor. Since that time, Mr. LaBovick has maintained an AV rating from Martindale-Hubbell and been named a super lawyer in 2007 and a Florida Trend Legal Elite Attorney in 2010, both in the personal injury field. He has been involved in multiple charities and community service projects over the past 30 years and served on numerous charity boards. He is a past director of the Palm Beach County Justice Association and a past president of the North Palm Beach County Bar Association. Mr. LaBovick has created multiple businesses outside his law firm, including Media Maven Marketing, Legal Assist LLC, and a national specialized medical billing company, GOSB. Mr. LaBovick moved to Palm Beach County, Florida, where he started a solo practice in 1994. Since then, his firm has grown to 8 attorneys and 40 office staff and offices in Florida and Massachusetts. The firm handles serious personal injury, workers' compensation, Social Security disability, and PIP collections across the state of Florida. And I will hand over the presentation to our 2 presenters today.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you for having us. Let me go ahead and I will share my screen. There we go. Okay. Just want to confirm everyone can see the screen and also hear me, hear us, Brian and I. Feel free to put it in the chat if the answer is yes.
I can hear you. You're good.
Right. Well, Brian, if you can hear me, then let's just go ahead and get
started. That's it. It's just you and me again. Let's do it.
I love it. I love it. So, yeah, to provide some context around this, it was probably several weeks ago where Brian had just absolutely destroyed me on the Peloton on a Saturday ride. And then the follow-up message was, would you like to give a presentation on, I think it was, like adversity, problems, brand building? And the answer to all those is obviously yes. But I think this is a very timely presentation, and the fact that you guys get CLEs for this is even better. Hopefully this will be at least an hour or so well spent. But this is especially timely because I don't know that conversations are happening where the word COVID is not mentioned, and especially presentations. You hear words like new normal and so on. And it's interesting from the standpoint that every law firm owner that I speak with, we work with nearly 1,000 of them, and across all different markets, all practice areas, everything from personal injury, family law, estate planning, criminal defense, everything. And for every single firm that I speak with that says there is nothing I can do, I am doomed, there is another firm that we also speak with in the same market, in the same practice area, that also sees opportunities, and they're having very strong months. So after enough of that, and seeing both sides of the situation, literally, same practice area, same market area. One firm sees it, as doom and gloom. The other sees it as opportunity. And, I wanted to take away some of the lessons that we learned from that and perhaps provide you guys with some, hopefully valuable insights to grow the business and grow the brand, because fighting and resisting change, the reality of it is, we can control what we can control. Whether you're dealing with different state mandates, whether courts are closed, whether people are quarantined, whatever that is, those are things that I find that once you just accept it, life gets much easier, because then you can just focus on the things that you can actually do in your firm, in your business, with your team, with your family, in your community, and so on. So that's what we'll talk about. We'll talk about the things that you actually can do. And then if you choose to apply any of these things, that would be a huge bonus. So with that, as we begin, we'll talk about roughly five key topics and core tenets, because what this is really about, and I'll go back to this slide, is just really about brand resilience during COVID, how your business and brand can rise in every environment. And the reality of it is that you probably already have been through a crisis before. More than likely, you've experienced something that, had it not been for that event, you would not be where you are today. And COVID is undoubtedly not the last crisis that you will experience in your business. Part of it kind of comes with the job and the role of an entrepreneur and a CEO, and you've got to weather difficult waters. So let's go ahead and get into it. I think the first thing that I want to touch on as we head into this stuff is that as you've been growing your business and as you've been growing your firm, I realized this very quickly with my own business. And, when I started Crisp, this was back in 2012, I had $500 to my name. That is what I started the business with. To even go further back, to give you some just quick context on me, my family and I, we immigrated here from Eastern Europe. I came here when I was 4 years old. with my parents, my brother, and my grandparents. They ironically had $500 to their name. So, I grew up, poor, low-income housing, but, I had very supportive parents, and I'm very grateful for that. And they valued education and so on. I was very unemployable, and I guess entrepreneurial is another way to put that, at an early age. And, and when I started Crisp, I was gritting my way as I was growing this business. So like, I'm sure we could all, we all look back to a point in time, or maybe you're still doing it, where I was just simply working 100+ hour weeks, and, and we were growing, but it wasn't very scalable or sustainable. And then I learned that very quickly, because I saw that as the business is growing, so as you're growing in terms of different levels of revenue, and the number of cases you're bringing in, and the number of problems scale. Now you're also interfacing with more people. So if you have a team or more clients and so on, that scales too. And along with that, you get the stress, more overheads, and all these things are just is a part of growth. But there's always one thing that if anyone's figured this one out, that does not scale, which is your time. Okay. So your time, we all have the same 24 hours. We all have the same, 365 days in a year. That does not change. Okay. So while these other things change, your time remains finite. So the way in which you spend your time, you dedicate your time, is going to be the difference between, whether you achieve your goals or not achieve your goals, whether you'll grow your firm or not grow your firm, whether you'll make a greater impact or a lesser impact. I mean, that's really going to come down to the types of decisions you make and how you spend your time. And I learned very quickly that, gritting my way through the business would only take us to a certain point. And then beyond that, I had nothing more to give. I mean, I was working, I think, 120-hour weeks, and that landed me in the hospital because I was, absolutely exhausted. And at that point, I was sitting in the hospital bed. I realized very quickly that I was of no use to anybody when I was essentially out of commission. So there had to be a better way. And, as we talk about the lessons that follow, much of this is a cautionary tale. And it's something that, having learned this stuff now, looking back, it's amazing what you don't know. And in fact, if any of you have ever seen this pie chart of what you know, what you don't know, and then the greater piece of this whole pie is always what you don't know, you don't know. That's the most dangerous blind spot that there is. The things that you don't even know that you don't know. But as you learn these lessons, as you learn, and everything from a leadership standpoint, culture standpoint, operations, business development, all those different things, once you can see the cause and effect behind different types of decisions that you can make, and once you learn this stuff, it's almost like you can see the matrix. Okay, like you can. It's not only before, when I first started the business, when I would hire somebody, we had no process for hiring people. I based it on gut feeling. If I felt that they would work hard and that they would be, a good human being, and I was wrong about, well, I was right 50% of the time, but I was wrong the other 50%. So I might as well just flip the coin. So there was no process there. When a team member would not work out, I didn't know why. And that's a very frustrating existence, right? When, sometimes if the phone rings less and you don't know why it's ringing less, or why, numbers are down in a given month and you don't know why, or the cause and effect, that's where I think a lot of stress comes from. But when you can understand, and kind of pull the veil behind a lot of this stuff and understand how things work, it just, quite candidly, it just becomes a lot more enjoyable. It becomes a lot more fun, because now you're of the standpoint that you understand how the decisions that you make are going to influence different outcomes. I wrote a whole book about this. I think I mentioned it earlier. It's called Game Changing Attorney. You can get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. If you would like, and I'll just mention this, if you shoot me a text. So my phone number is at the bottom of every slide, and it's on this shirt. My team made me this shirt, so I never forget my phone number. But if you shoot me a text, I'll send you a copy of the book for free. Or you can just go on Amazon and buy it, So either way, but if you like free, just shoot me a message. So with that, let's go ahead and really get into this stuff, okay? And I find that everything starts, if you don't get this first one right, and by the way, when we talk about these 5 different building blocks, if you will, you can't just pick and choose the ones you like. You kind of need all 5. So, but in terms of levels of importance, I'll tell you that if you don't get this first one right, it's very, very difficult to really sell yourself on any of the other 4. And this starts with really focusing on your next level vision. Here's the challenge and the stuck that I see with most law firm owners, and not just law firm owners, just with business owners. They do not have clarity over what type of future they want to achieve. And when I mean clarity, I mean if they think out 3 years, 5 years, 10 years out, what does your life look like? What does your practice look like? How do you spend your time? And without this clarity, essentially, are your decisions supporting your ambitions? So if it's not, and especially if you don't even have clarity over what it is that you want, well, chances are that at least half of the decisions that you make every single day could be the wrong decision because, they could be opposite of where you want to go. So without this clarity, it's very, very difficult to get anywhere. And, when we'll talk about different types of goals and growth, I like to use the word transformational growth because I'm the type of human being that doesn't believe there's a middle ground. I think you're either going to have a transformational goal that you're going to achieve, or there's not something in the middle that, you'll do. You're all bought in, you're all in, or you're all out. And, the purpose of transformational growth is the fact that this is something that has to change your life. If your goals, by achieving them, do not change your life in a meaningful way. So meaning that if you say, hey, we want to grow our practice this year, we're going to grow by 3% or 5%, but by achieving that goal, nothing really changes in your life. How bought into that goal are you? Because it could happen or it might not happen, but nothing really changes. But what if achieving your goals allows you to buy a building, hire additional attorneys, be able to make a greater impact in your community, be able to, support a larger team. And then they, as a result, your team is able to, buy their own homes or pay off their student loans or whatever it is. Now that becomes a much more worthy goal. I spoke to a firm owner the other day and he said that one of his goals was to be able to leave the office for 2 weeks to take his family to Disney World. Okay. And this is obviously, in a post-COVID world, but that was his goal. And that was a transformational goal because since he started his practice, he's not been able to take his family on vacation. And he can go, but the problem when he leaves is in his view, the practice essentially shuts down because it is that dependent on him. So that's the purpose of setting a, transformational goal. Now, there's two types of goals: regular goals, meaning how to get there. So I see a lot of firm owners that set a goal that, I'll just use the example I mentioned earlier where you say, we want to grow revenue by 5%. Well, does it get you excited? And then also, if you already know how to get there, like if you know that you could just work harder and that you would achieve, that goal, that to me is not really a goal. That's more like a task, So like if you already know how to get to your goal and you already know what to do, it's just a task. To me, it's not really a goal. A transformational goal is something that not only gets you excited, but you may have absolutely no idea how you're going to achieve it. So meaning that there's unknowns, that you have to increase your capabilities to achieve those goals. So, there's a lot of things that have to come together. You have to build a larger team and you have to train that team. You have to implement new processes and new systems and new technology in your practice. You have to become, invest more in your marketing, all those different things that have to be true in order to achieve that goal. And because that comes with unknowns, it's exciting, but it's also a little bit scary. So, those types of goals require you to increase your capabilities to achieve them. And once you increase your capabilities, that's what allows you to, essentially you have to grow in order to achieve those goals. But why is it that most people fail to achieve their goals? There's a lot of people in the gym on what is January 1st, and then you come back, let's say January 31st, and there's not as many. I mean, it's not that, people didn't want six-pack abs. It's not that they didn't want to get in shape. It's like, who would not want to be healthier and be better? I find that ambition as a whole is generally very common, but the reality of it is the percentage of people that actually achieve their goals, and then the more ambitious, in many cases, the less percentage of people that actually achieve them. Why is it that they fail to achieve them? So I think it starts with, first of all, there's really no clear direction or target. So if you're going to drive somewhere that's new or unknown, wouldn't you rather have a clear destination? Because if you don't have that path, that route, that destination where you want to go mapped out, then, you could be driving in circles for all you know. So like I said, the first one is really, there's just no target. And as the quote by Zig Ziglar goes, that if you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time. And yep, that does animate. Okay. So no target. Second reason, the goals just aren't clearly defined. How many people have you spoken to and you ask them what are their goals? And they're like, we want to grow. Okay. By 1,000, 100,000, 1 million, 10 million. I mean, those are very, very different goals, but it's not clearly defined. Or we want to attract better cases. Okay, well, specifically what types of cases? What do you want the average case value to be? We want to improve our intakes. Okay, well, how do you know when you've achieved that goal? I find that if there's not a number tied to a goal, it's not clearly defined. Okay, so you have to know objectively when that destination has been reached. And then the final reason I find that people don't achieve their goals is, quite frankly, they just do not care about them. Okay, so they do not care about their goals. I was going to say something different, but I'm assuming that this is a profanity-free presentation, so we'll keep it PG or PG-13. But it's the reason why most people don't achieve their goals and why they don't care about their goals is because the goals are insignificant. And it's not insignificant to me or somebody else. It's insignificant to the person who has set their goals. So like your goals are insignificant to you. So meaning that because they don't change your life, why would you care? And as a result, this is what happens when many people get complacent, because those goals to them, it's like, maybe we do achieve them, maybe we don't, but life goes on. And as I mentioned earlier, the differences between ambition and commitment. Ambition, we've all got, right? A strong desire to achieve or do something. Who doesn't want to be better? Commitment is when you're truly dedicated to something, when you are dedicated to it, no matter how you feel when you get out of bed. Some days you're motivated, some days you're not, but you do it anyway. And without, ambition really only works when there's an all-in commitment to your goals. Okay. And the only way you can have this all-in commitment is you've got to have a strong enough why. And for those of you that follow Simon Sinek, and whether you like him or don't like him, or you view these concepts like, why, vision statement, purpose, core values. I used to believe all those things were nice and cute, but I don't have time for that. I need to grow my business, right? I don't have time for core values and mapping out all this stuff. I'll tell you, you can save yourself a lot of time and have a lot more clarity when you are clear about where you want to go, your principles, the foundations behind how you will make decisions. When you can lay that out in front, right from the get-go, every other decision gets much easier. So I'll share with you guys briefly. So our 5-year vision is to help 1,000 law firm owners grow their revenues by over $1 million each. So it's a $1 billion impact in the next 5 years. So, when we were looking at this, in terms of what vision do we set, we wanted to look at it from the standpoint of how do we drive the most impact, okay? And then when this goal is achieved, you can always set a greater one too. But I will say that it's the best visions I find when you look at companies across the board nationally and even internationally. It's not about you. It is about you helping somebody else win and succeed. So meaning when you can help make an impact for somebody else, where it's not just, hey, our goal is to grow X amount in revenue, or whatever it is. But instead it's about, we want to help somebody else win and somebody else succeed. There's a great book by Adam Grant called Give and Take. If you have not read it, I certainly encourage you to, but life gives to the givers. Okay. And that's another thing I used to think that's something rich people say. Okay. When I was starting the business with $500 to my name and I was hearing things like this, I'm like, okay, that's easy for them to say. But I've now learned that by giving and helping and supporting others and helping them succeed, that is how rich people get rich. Okay. In an entrepreneurial self-starter sort of way. Okay. So we won't spend too much time on kind of how to map out and articulate this vision. We have a tool for those of you that stick around to the end. We've actually, in our coaching program, we created this vision planner tool. It's a whole guide for you how you can map this out. And I encourage you to really dedicate time to sit down separately in your office, whether it's by yourself or with your team or particularly your leadership team, and really get clear about this. But I'll give you guys the link to this thing at the end of the webinar. So the final thing before I hand it over to Brian, and he'll talk about the next few items, is just that, life becomes a lot less boring when your future self that you're clear on, because you've got, your vision, that becomes your daily mission. Okay. So meaning that, the most successful people truly enjoy the journey of getting there. And it's, it's almost a disservice to them to have the capability to make such a great impact, but not realizing your full potential to actually do it. So with that, we'll talk about change. Brian, I turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. All right. Were there any questions? Number one, Ashley, did anybody write a question or anything? So
I don't see any questions yet. If anybody has a question, feel free to put in the chat. I believe we're going to wait to the end to answer the questions.
That's
we'll have
fine.
about 15 minutes. However, I can keep up with the list if anybody wants to ask questions while the presentation's going on.
All right. So before I go on to accept change and resistance is futile in a concept, I just want to back up and I want to talk about what Michael talked about for just one other point, Michael, if you don't mind. When you talk about creating a vision, right, we're talking about how do we create a vision and what's our vision going to be, and setting those goals out there and being able to do that for yourself personally and for your firm and for your business. One of the best things that I've recognized, right, and I recognized it after hearing your interview with Cameron Harold, Michael. So the concept of creating alignment in your team If you've got more than 3 people that you're working with and you have a clear vision that you can articulate and your team can buy into, you create such a better sense of alignment. There's a couple of books that are amazing, and I'm gonna pitch them here because I think that a couple of things line up. So first is this guy here, Patrick Lencioni. I don't know if you read Lencioni, Mike, but this guy to me is a brilliant business mind, and he writes these great, thin, very easy to read story type books. This is the definitive book on how to create organizational health, and he goes into vision planning in it a little bit and the need for it. And then the book that you turned me on to, Mike, when you had Cameron on, but Cameron Herold is a operations director extraordinaire. This book, Vivid Vision, is amazing. And what Michael did, which I've got his vision planner and I love it, right? He distilled down all of those concepts and really like put them into a worksheet so that you can go through it brilliantly and say, okay, all of that verbiage that they took to try to explain all of that, you can get that right in his vision, worksheet. It's pretty amazing. The first book's name is The Advantage, and it's by Patrick Lencioni. Now, he's written a lot of books, Lencioni. This is not a storybook. So he writes these spectacular business storybooks that take on a problem. Like the best one, I think, is probably The 5 Dysfunctions of Team. If you want to learn about teamwork and personalities and how to build teams, read that book. It's a great story, fable read, and it gives great business lessons. But that's not...
Sorry to interrupt, Brian. Adriana asked, what was the name of the first book? I felt like that was a question we could address now.
Yeah, that's what I was answering. I saw it.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Gotcha. I saw it pop up, but thank you. The second book is Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold. If anybody wants them, they can ask me for them later. And then download Mike's vision planner because it's brilliant in its distillation of what these guys are talking about. All right, so now let's go to accept change, resistance is futile. I think that we all feel this right now. Like this is a ridiculous time. And we've all lived through change, right? I lived through 9/11. That was a ridiculous, awful moment for our country, a terrible change. We lived through the financial meltdown in 2008, 9, 10, era. I had the hubris of investing in a lot of property in 2006, 7, 8. So I felt the bite of that pretty significantly. So we've lived through some really interesting times in our life, right? This is the most significant because COVID is going to change the world. It's going to change all offices. I think that, and it's a marketing thing as well. We'll get into marketing and that in a moment, but the Trump presidency is a significant change because it really is the first president in my lifetime who has so overtly said, you choose my side or you are bad, you are evil. And he is very clear that that's his message. My message is you're on my side or you're not on my side. And I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you've been a conservative your whole life. If you're not on Trump's side, you're not on the Republican Party anymore. And that has led to some very interesting marketing analysis because under the most loved Republican president of my lifetime, Ronald Reagan, 500 days into his office, he had 77% of the Republican Party's support. Donald Trump, at 500 days, had 89% Republican support. He is the highest level of unified vision for what is now the new Republican Party that has ever happened in our lifetime. And that is nothing but knowing his concept of what he wants and marketing it to his people and not accepting any compromise. And anything that's different, he cuts and he says, we're making a choice here. You're on my team or you're on their team. And their team is bad. And that's the way he works. So other things that are I'm going to just hold up on this one for a second. Other things that we have to consider as lawyers, right? These incredible changes going on. The political landscape obviously is causing us issues. The rise of technology is an incredible change in our life, right? You've got Amazon teaching us right now that you don't have to go anywhere and you can get anything at your doorstep. You now have this concept of artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is an extreme program style where computers learn from their own conceptualizing of problems and data sets, and they come up with analysis based on that, right? And that technology has run forward very quickly. But we lawyers haven't been able to really apply it very well, right? Because it's been academic. Well, now you can buy AI as a service. In other words, you can go to Google, Amazon, IBM, buy Watson, apply it to your data set, and start learning things that are far and away different and nuanced than we've ever been able to do before. And that's going to start to impact us, right? How is it going to start to impact us? Because right now I say, hey, Google, set an alarm for 12:45. And it sets an alarm for 12:45 in my house without me touching an alarm clock. How long will it be till I get to say, hey, Google, write me a will. Hey, Google, I've got a traffic ticket. Scan this traffic ticket and set up a date for me to have a Zoom hearing because I want to dispute it. I mean, our lives are going to change dramatically because of this, right? The other thing that's happening that I don't think that we recognize or appreciate is 5G. Why is 5G so incredible and important? Because the level of data that is now going to be transmitted mobily is going to take things like self-driving autonomous cars like Teslas, because I have a brand new Tesla and it'll drive me down the highway without crashing into anything, right? That affects me as an injury lawyer. It doesn't run into things. It doesn't back into things. It doesn't run into people at stoplights. But the 5G capacity is going to allow it to learn while it's driving everything that's going on and talk to somebody in the sky, right? How long is it going to be till black boxes are not in the cars, till black boxes are downloaded through the internet? Everything that's happening in a car before an accident should be able to be transmitted to the internet, saved, and then we'll know everything that's happening with everybody through the cameras and the cars, and everybody will be tracked. Our lives are going to change because of this transmission of data, and we need to recognize and accept that fact. The Internet of Things, an incredible change. Everything's going to talk to the internet. Your car, your radio, your refrigerator is going to tell you when. And so I don't want to go on too long. The other thing that I thought about was the extended reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, the concept of being able to have a jury put on goggles and all feel like we're sitting in the same room while we're sitting in our bedrooms. That's going to happen, right? That's going to change the way that we've been saying, oh, well, we can't really, jury trials, and COVID is changing the world and technology is changing the world. And if we want to be prepared for it, you need to forward think this and prepare yourself on every possible level. So go back to 2009, 8 and 9, when we were rebuilding this firm. We asked ourselves, how do we make ourselves indestructible, right? So let's get back to this. And my concern was two things. I had two really fears, right? Because I bought a building in 2010. And my fear was A, the building would burn down, so fire, and B, a hurricane would come and blow everything out of my building that was a paper file, and we would be ruined as a business. And so we started to try to insulate ourselves. We had 2 location co-hosted data sets. So our data was held in 2 different servers on 2 different locations. And then we moved to a data center, because you can go to a data center. And now we have this very clear option of being able to just push everything to a centralized hub, which we call cloud, right? But that's just a data center that somebody else runs for you. And so you're able to do that. So you can use technology to help make yourself indestructible. And then you have to ask yourself, how do I make myself indestructible in my brand, right? Because technology is one sense, your capacity to keep working through a tragedy, but what's going to happen into the future and what allows you to bring your business into the future and be able to recognize that changes in environment, changes in technology, changes in the world will not cause my brand to fail, right? And if you think what you're doing right now is going to get you someplace else, you're fooling yourself, right? What got you here is only going to get you here. If you keep doing the same thing, it's not going to take you to a new result. That's the definition of insanity, right? You need to do something different. You do the same thing, you get the same result, you're going to go back to square one. If you're looking to grow, you need to create a new vision and you need to figure out where you want to go. And how you want to do that is to niche down your practice. That is the quickest, easiest way of creating market differentiation and recognizing that market differences are important, all right? So I want to talk just a minute about market differences. When I got into marketing, my law firm, I really thought that I needed to cast this super wide net. I got out with, very generalized commercials that were like, if you're injured, I didn't want to say slip and fall. I didn't want to say car accident. I didn't want to say truck, because I wanted them all. I wanted everything. If you're injured, call me, right? Like, it was just this very general concept, right? And what I've learned over time is the wider your net, the less your opportunity, right? That's the unfortunate truth. And if I were a space alien and I came down to Earth and I walked into a grocery store and I looked at the cereal aisle, I would look at all of those things as there are 300 different cereals in a grocery store, and they would all be identical to me. There's no market differentiation. It's a homogeneous run of all of these cereals, right? And the differentiations and the level of differentiation these cereal companies have come up with: 12% less sugar, 2% more protein, 1% more raisins. I mean, there's distinctions without differences because there's so many choices in the market, right? And how do we know when we've got this homogeneous market out there that a consumer, a space alien would look at all that and be like, these are all identical choices. You may know through brand advertising that you like Raisin Bran better than Post Raisin Bran or whatever, but an alien would look at that and be like, there's no differences in any of these brands. I don't know who's doing what here. I know they all are doing identically the same thing. Pick anyone off the shelf, right? And that's where we are in consumer-based law right now, right? And we know that because the moniker of what it means to be overindulged in a homogeneous product line is mockery. And I don't think that there's any brands out there that are more mocked than legal brands. And that means that we are not doing a good job letting the world know that we serve a purpose that's unique to us. We have a unique personality in each of us, and that we need to let the world know that we're experts in something that helps them, right? So you need to ask yourself, how do I get to a niche audience? What do I need to do to get there? And we have steps 1 and 2 here, right? So steps 1 is deciding, looking at your audience and saying, okay, how do they want to hire us? What are the goals and pain points, and what questions do they have? All right. But the next question, personally to me, is the first place that I came from, right? I asked myself, what do I do well, right? Like, I like to fight. That's what I do. I fought my whole life. I fought when I was in high school because kids didn't, quite honestly, like Jews in my high school. So I started there, and then I went to college, and I boxed in college. And then I got out of college, and it was in law school, and I did Taekwondo and this MMA craziness that was too much. So to get to that niche market and to ask yourself, who do I want to represent? You ask who you are. How do you get to you? Like, who are you, right? And if you look at that personalized question, like the examples here are very apropos, right? I came from a place where I was bullied, so I learned to fight, which is kind of my thing, right? Other people came from an adopted family and they feel empathy for people that are adopted. Or they came from an illegal immigrant family and they feel some affinity toward that community and they understand that, right? So this is your personal, unique value proposition. And I used to think my unique value proposition was that I had a color printer or that I had a courtroom in my office. It was like, I have a courtroom, right? And that is a nice accoutrement. That's a market differentiation, little segmentation, market addition to my brand, but it's not a unique value proposition because anybody can have it, right? Anybody can do that. To be different, you have to know who you are, and you have to say, I'm unique to this situation because this is who I am as a human being. So this is our unique value proposition. And like I said, we started a marketing company, and I used to think that it was those market differentiations that were going to give you uniqueness in the market. And it wasn't really until I hired Mike to come and talk to us through his people about who we were. Like, and when they came in and they interviewed us, they said to us, all right, so who's the LaBovick Law Group? Like, tell us about that before we do this brand video for you. And I said, all right, so we have a very clear vision. Our vision, and we have it all over. Everybody here, if you ask anybody, will say we are warriors for justice. It used to be when I was a younger person, I came out of being a prosecutor. I was a federal prosecutor. My wife was a state prosecutor under Janet Reno. We were prosecutors, and I actually trademarked civil justice prosecutors. And I used to advertise civil justice prosecutors. And everybody was like, well, you can't call them. They don't do what we want to do. We want to be we need an accident lawyer. So I had a really hard time figuring out that I needed to distill down that concept of civil justice prosecutors into warriors for justice. And our mission, right? Our mission is to fight for people I apologize. Our mission in the office is to maximize justice by aggressively fighting for our clients' rights. I wanted to make sure I got it exactly right. To maximize justice by aggressively fighting for our clients' rights. And our first core value is fight to win. So with that, I'm going to roll what they created on the back of that concept of unique sales proposition.
Everything that I've done in my life has been about fighting. My first bully experience was with a kid getting off the bus who was beating me up every day after I got off the bus. I would run home scared of the bully. And my dad was home one day, and that's when he gave me that very tough love message of, I don't care what happens, you go outside and stand up and fight for yourself. So I stood up to the bully. I learned early on that I enjoyed fighting back. I've just enjoyed and has always been drawn to the fight. When you are litigating, you are using the same type of strategy analysis that you do when you're boxing. Boxing is an important sport. That speed is your friend. When you get into a fight with an insurance company, you need to go hard. You need to bring that fight to the insurance company fast. And we move that litigation as fast as possible. That speed will be our friend to maximize justice.
I was walking to the bus stop to catch the bus to go home, and I got hit by a Lincoln Navigator. She hit me doing 45 miles an hour. Left arm was broken, ribs were broken, lacerated kidney and liver. I had severe brain damage, and the optic nerve is damaged, so I'm legally blind now.
When my husband was first hurt that night, I didn't know if I was going to be able to take care of him, or my daughter was going to be able to take care of him. On the first day that I met these people, I felt like I had family behind me, taking care of my husband and myself, my daughter. There probably was stuff that's going. They have been nothing but the kindest, most genuine people. God forbid your family members say, you're in a hospital right now, you don't know what to do. Make a phone call to them. Don't waste any time. Don't sit back. Losing is going with somebody else.
We understand that after an accident, that it could be one of the darkest times that a client can go through. They're in this terrible place and they don't see a light in the future. And we want to be that light for a person. We're going to listen to what really is happening in your life. We're going to take the time to understand you as a person and understand your claim completely. I believe that the bullying that I went through, the ability to stand up for myself, the character that I developed has led me to be a very successful lawyer, litigator for my clients. I've spent my whole life fighting. I've spent my career as a prosecutor and then as an attorney fighting for my clients' rights. I founded this firm based on the idea that we would fight for justice. And we will not stop until justice is done for you.
You're on mute, Brian.
Somebody put me on mute. Got it. All right. So thank you, Michael. I just said thank you for creating that because it was brilliant, right? I don't think that I don't think that we recognized how important it was to be able to distill down that unique value proposition to the client, because that video, right, answers this $1 million question, right? And the $1 million question, when somebody comes and runs into your brand on the internet or in a TV commercial or anything, is, why would I pick you? Why am I picking you over the other million cereals that are in the market, right? And people relate to stories, and people believe stories, and people hire people who they commonly talk about 3 important questions that you ask before you hire somebody. They hire people that they know, like, and trust, right? Very similar. Why should I trust you? The reason you should trust me is because this is who I am. I'm a fighter. And if you're looking to hire a fighter, you can trust, after watching that you know you got a guy who has grown up fighting, right? What makes me different than everybody else? Most of the messages that are in the market right now are not fighting messages. And I think that, honestly, the reason they're not fighting messages is because most of the market doesn't want a fighting message. I think that my desire to appeal to the amount of people that want the fight is less than the people that want to get a quick settlement and put money in their pocket. There's a lot of people in the world that are going to respond to, I got this amount of money, because they want a quick settlement and they want the money in their pocket and they do not want a fight. Those people might be repelled by that message that we have on who we are. So my market segment and my marketing is not targeting people that are looking for quick settlements, because quick settlements come, right? And these people are looking, people that want to hire LaBovick Law Group want to hire somebody who's going to fight for the complete maximum amount of money that they can get in their case. And they're willing to not compromise on a lower amount of money. So we are able to answer these questions that, you know, like, and trust, because of who we are, because of our history. So the concept of being able to put a courtroom in your office and say, this is unique, I have a courtroom, resonates when your concept is that you're a fighter, because a courtroom is a boxing ring for lawyers. And that's what we do. All right. Now, how do you know that you're going to get to the right voice? How do I know that I'm going to get to the people that want this message versus what is probably the more significant and more larger market share message? I have to know who I'm going to talk to. I have to figure out, what is their pain point? Who is that person and what's their pain point? And how does being a fighter address their unique points? And this is really where I think it's why I like where we are in the market, right? The people we're talking to are the people who cannot afford not to fight for maximum value in their case. It's the person like the gentleman in the wheelchair, Charles, who his whole life was changed dramatically, and he wasn't going to be able to settle that case. He was going to have to try that case for maximum value. That's the person that we want to represent. So you ask people, what are you going through, right? When we're going to reach out to these people, what are they going through, right? Are the people that you're reaching out to in a advertisement that says, I got X amount of dollars, call me, people that are lying on a hospital bed for a month? Maybe not. Maybe there are people that went to the hospital that night, they feel better, they have a neck ache, they want to get their case settled, but they want something quicker than maximum value. You know who these people you're talking to, right? What are they feeling? What are they going to experience? You know, and what are you going to help problem? Are you going to help solve for them, right? So you weave all of that together. You take all of those points and you say to yourself, I help, pick your ideal client, pick something. I help people that have been picked up by ICE that are going to be shipped out of the country back to their country with their fight against the government because they're sitting in an immigration jail, because I am the child of an immigrant family where my mother came through illegally and fleeing political persecution. And I know how difficult it is for people to have this in their life and needing to fight back about it, right? You've got to let people know you're unique, you understand their problem, and you will help them and solve that problem with them. And when you can do that, you can take your market, you can niche it down, and you can target it. And with that, your opportunities broaden, not by being a broad message and thinking you're going to appeal to everybody. you're going to get your market share and you're going to be more successful now than before. I think that's it for me, right, dude? You're into best known?
Yes, sir.
All right,
Yes,
I'll let you pick it up then.
Brian, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Brian actually made it easy for that video, because how often do you have, one, such an incredible story, and then we got the boxing ring, and you just tie it in. But so we never manufacture any of these stories. The stories are there. We just we ultimately are just showcasing them and highlighting them. And it's the whole goal of all of this, and it doesn't even have to be through video. Just in whatever medium that you're communicating through your audience, it's to decommoditize who you are and what you do. If you are seen as a commodity, as just simply a lawyer, or even a personal injury lawyer, or a criminal defense lawyer, what have you, there's plenty of supply, right, for that. Consumers have no shortage of options, but unfortunately, there's limited demand. So there's an incremental value to being better, but there's an exponential value to being different. And this brings me to recognizing that best known beats best, because I did not want to accept this one for years. Okay. I was of the belief that if we simply so when I started Crisp, that if we were simply the best at what we did, if we produced the best videos, the most, if we were the best marketers, that would allow us to be the most successful and to really grow the business. And I was 100% absolutely wrong. In fact, even from the very beginning, even in 2012 and 2013, I mean, we produced, phenomenal legal videos that were story driven and very cinematic. And so, but the reality of it is we were not the best known. So as a result, people couldn't hire us. And I speak to countless law firm owners that are telling me, I don't know if there's anyone who's ever met a firm owner who said that they are not the best attorney in their market. Okay. Everyone I meet and everyone I speak with is the best. They're the best litigator. They're the best attorney, without a doubt. But if you were to ask that same person, are you 100% confident that you were the best known attorney or firm in your market? Not as many hands go up. So it's just recognizing that the best known will always beat the best. And this is not necessarily a trade-off. The goal is actually to be both. But I speak to so many people that are the best kept secret. And I'll tell you, there are graveyards littered with best kept secrets, right? So it's people cannot hire you unless they know you. And the reality of it is, unless they know of your firm, unless they've heard of you, they can't, they can't hire you. They can't refer to you. They can't really do anything with you unless you get your message out there. So if you truly are the best, let's say that's the case, then I actually believe it is fundamentally your duty to get your message out there. Because if there's, if consumers can hire subpar attorneys and law firms and so on, and you are the best and you are in the best interest of those clients in your community, then why would you not do everything in your power to get in front of them to ensure that they get the right representation? So it's one of those things where, the stigma around marketing and advertising, in years past, I think that at this point has become a necessity, because the reality of it is, the firms who may not be able to compete in terms of like their, let's say their talent and their capabilities, will still compete in terms of getting their marketing message out. So you've got a duty to do that as well. So, I remember asking this at our conference last year. We had a room of 1,000 people, and I asked them, where do your best cases come from? Okay. And, people are thinking and they're thinking, and I'm like, okay, harsh truth. This one got me in a lot of trouble. I'll tell you where they do not come from, where your best cases do not come from. And they do not come from Google. Okay. Now, we had a lot of SEO vendors and marketing companies and things like that in the room, and they did not like what I had to say. But if I reframe this question and I was, were to ask you, even watching this webinar now, how many of you would say that your absolute best cases and clients have come through referral and word of mouth, whether it's from a past client, whether it's from another attorney or another law firm? And it seems almost unanimous that the highest value cases and the best clients come from referral and word of mouth. But here's the thing. The only type of people that can refer to you are the ones who know you. So, and by the way, this is not to say that, Google and SEO are not important. They actually are important, but something interesting happens in the way to look at this from the standpoint of how do people who know you find you, is the concept of branded search. So Search Engine Land, they did a study and they found that the number one factor of when someone clicks on your name in the search result is whether they've heard of you before. Okay. So 70% of consumers look for known brand. So when they're searching, let's say in your practice area, they're searching for, a legal need or pain point in the search engine, the number one factor whether they will click on your firm is whether they have heard of you before. okay? So this introduces the idea of the fact that in a previous life, and in a previous world, this is like the early days of the internet, the hiring decisions would go like this. You could run an ad, someone would see your ad, click your ad, and become a client. It was amazing, okay? This was years past. This is over, okay? Nowadays, unless you were playing the long game, like here's how, today attention generally functions, and this is a multi-channel approach. Someone might see a video of your firm on Facebook, then they're retargeted with an ad on, like, say, YouTube or the Wall Street Journal or CNN or Fox News or wherever. They'll see it, they'll drive by a billboard, they'll hear your radio ad. Then one day, whether it's sooner or later, whether it's that day or 6 months or 6 years from that point, they'll have a legal need. They'll remember your firm because they've now seen your brand numerous times. They'll Google your firm name, go to your website, reach out to your firm, and set an appointment. And the interesting thing about this is when the intake staff asks, how did you hear about us? The answer is always Google, right? But as we can see, there's a lot of steps that happen here, leading up to Google, right? How do they know to search for your firm specifically? How do they find your phone number? How do they get to your website? All those different things were influenced by multiple touch points leading up to this. So it's of the standpoint that you can no longer do just one touch point, or they can just see one ad or anything like that. And also from the fact that only 3% of legal consumers are ready to make a hiring decision that day. And over 90% of law firms are targeting the 3% that want to hire that day, and not the 97% that could hire you sometime in the future, whether it's in a week or a month or more. So the general idea here is that the goal should be, this is of any size firm. This is not for large firms or just for small firms or mid-sized firms. This is for everyone. This is like if there's laws that could be applied to like attention, this is like the laws of physics, right? Your goal should always be to remain top of mind to your ideal clients, where they spend their time. It's as simple as that. But where do you market and advertise? Because, the reality is you have a lot of choices. You can do this in multiple places. I find that one of the best ways to approach this is almost like a math problem, okay? And in a way to equalize various platforms, kind of normalize them and say, okay, how do I compare one platform to another and so on? Like, how do I compare direct mail to TV, to newspaper, to radio, to billboards, to social media? How do I know which one's going to work? One of the most frequent ways to do it is to look at it from a CPM, or cost per milli. So basically, what does it cost to reach 1,000 people through that medium? Okay, so as an example, TV, this is a study by Morgan Stanley, was $28 to reach 1,000 people. Radio was $10 to reach 1,000 people. So let's flip this equation and say, how many people can you reach for $1,000, okay, across different mediums? So if it's on, let's say, TV, for $1,000, you reach 35,000. With radio, for $1,000, you reach 100,000 people. And with social media, for $1,000, you can reach 400,000 people. So if I were starting out, and if I had to start over again, and I was competing against, let's say, a major radio advertiser, TV advertiser, billboard advertiser in my market, and I only have a finite amount of resources that I can invest, I would look at it from the standpoint that for every $1,000 that he spends on radio, I can spend the same $1,000 on social media and reach 4 times as many people than he can for the same amount of money. And that, I'll tell you, another law is that he or she who can buy the most traffic in a medium will win that medium. So if you can reach 4 times as many people for the same amount of money, consider the fact that that could be a very valuable place to market and advertise. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do direct mail or TV or magazine. I actually think every single one of these works. And in fact, you really should consider, where do your ideal clients spend their time? Okay, so that's the main consideration, but also look at it economically. So when COVID hit, and you see, so many advertisers pull out of social media in all different mediums, ad costs go down, consumption goes up. This introduces a very interesting arbitrage opportunity where, we doubled our ad spend. We're like, okay, costs of ads, it's like Black Friday, right? Every day, in March and in April, cost of ads is down like 30, 40%. Consumption is double or triple. So wouldn't this be a great time, instead of pulling back on the marketing, to double down on it? Because now we're getting, much more reach. So the thing that I had to close out the section on branding, because this is, literally, we wrote a whole book about it. So there's a large topic here. But the idea here is that when you build a brand, people search for your firm specifically. So it's the difference between being like, trying to win the search for headphones, when someone's just like searching online, I need headphones, versus AirPods, okay? The person who's looking for AirPods is not searching for headphones. They are looking for AirPods. And it's the difference between them searching, hey, I need a personal injury lawyer in Oregon, versus game changer law firm, okay? When you can decommoditize and they search for your firm specifically, you'll find that you're attracting many, like much more discerning clients, better clients in cases, and then you're just not competing in the same pool where you've got such a large amount of firms all spending ad dollars for such a very small segment of the population. But here's the challenge here, okay? The very best way to grow your business, well, let me say best is subjective, okay? I will say that the fastest way to grow your business and grow your law firm, there's a lot of ways you can do it. You know, there's a lot of different approaches you can take. You can focus on bringing in a ton of cases and a ton of leads, and you can grow it that way. But consistently, time and time again, what I've seen is that the fastest way to do it is to attract the best and highest value cases. It's going to be a very slow and long road when you're bringing in, you know, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000 soft tissue auto accident cases versus focusing on establishing yourself as the serious injury lawyer who's bringing in the, you know, 6-figure, 7-figure, and 8-figure cases. And, you know, the way I would equate this is like, you know, I don't gamble. So when I go to Vegas, I find that I get enough of that enjoyment in my own business. But it's like if you sat at a blackjack table and you gambled with $5 chips, the expectation that you would ever leave with $1,000 from that table gambling $5 at a time would be pretty silly, right? So, you know, at some point you've got to make a greater investment in your business, because if you're playing small chips, small hands, and so on, you may go up to $20 or $30, but you're never leaving that table with $1,000. And it's the same thing in terms of the clients and cases that you attract. So I'll briefly mention the, you know, this concept of like cost versus investment. Most law firms view, you know, any type of expense that they can have in their business as one, how do I minimize my exposure? So like, how do I minimize my risk at the same time where if I'm not getting an immediate payoff, so if I don't invest $1 and get $1.25 or $1.50 back, well, you know, it's not worth it. If it takes 6 months or 9 months or so on to realize that return, well, I'm not going to do it. And when you have that type of mindset, unfortunately, you actually limit yourself from a lot of opportunities and a lot of the things that I think keep a lot of competition out, because the firms that are willing to invest in the long term, that are willing to invest in their teams, that are willing to invest in their brand and their marketing, things that sometimes they cannot immediately track. But those things end up becoming the most worthwhile and that allow you to really build that bulletproof firm. So, you know, what I'll say is that if you're trying, and this is especially relevant during a time like this, if you're trying to eliminate all risk from your life, what you're doing simultaneously is eliminating all possibility as well, okay? So it's just recognizing that, you know, the most valuable, the most, you know, I guess, aspirational and worthy things that you could ever achieve will require a level of investment, will require a level of commitment, will require a level of dedication. That's just how it goes. That's why most people don't achieve it, right? Because they're just not willing to put enough skin in the game. And yes, of course, I mean, you could fail and it could not work out and so on. I mean, that's a part of it. I don't know any successful entrepreneur that did not experience failure or adversity or so on. But if you never even make the attempt, you know, I could guarantee you'll never succeed. So to close this section out, you know, the 4 keys to being best known in the digital landscape. Number 1, create great content. Okay. It's, you know, people sometimes ask me like, well, should I post at 2 o'clock on Tuesday or at 4 o'clock on Thursday, or should I, you know, post on Twitter at this time? And look, terrible content is terrible content Monday through Sunday, anytime, you know, of the day. Okay. Great content is great content every single day of the week. So, you know, if you're creating great, engaging content that is valuable to your audience, you know, like Brian's video is a great example of this. If you're putting out information, let's say that's, you know, a webinar, or you're interviewing people in your community, or, you know, things like that, that is valuable to your audience, you know, the best marketing is storytelling. Step 2, ensure that content gets in front of your ideal clients, wherever they spend their time. So that's how you also choose different platforms. Should you be on Facebook? Should you be on Twitter? Should you be on TikTok? It really depends on where your clients are, where they spend their time. 90+% of them are on Facebook. It's kind of the Pareto, if you had to choose. Step 3, leverage wholesale traffic. As I mentioned, whoever buys the most traffic will win. And then number 4, assume that no one heard your message, okay? You've got to be relentless with your approach, okay? It's like the new nurturing, meaning that if you message somebody one time or they see your ad one time, the idea that has somehow sunk in, that when they have a future need, that they will remember you. You know, effective frequency, which is what this is called, like how many times someone has to see you, your brand, to actually move the needle for them, is at least 7 to 10 times, okay? But if you give up after one time, it's going to be very difficult to make a whole lot of progress. So that is, you know, essentially the best known beats best. Any questions on this before we close out with the last section?
I checked there. I don't see anybody raising their hand or any comments in there. I do have a couple questions, just of my own personal. I can either wait till the end if you guys want or ask now.
Please.
Okay, so my first question goes to the beginning, Michael, when you were discussing setting goals, and you kind of gave your overarching goal for the year. Do you ever break down your goals throughout the year, say set it quarterly, monthly? And second part of the question, what do you do when you're going throughout your year and you see that either you're not going to meet that goal? Do you change your, I guess, your actions of what you're taking?
Great question. So the first one is in terms of setting the goals. We work backwards. So when we've set the target for, we actually start and say, okay, it's 5 years, 3 years, and then let's say we set it for the year. We further then break that down into quarterly targets. So every 3 months, then we break that down into monthly targets. And then I'm crazy enough to also break that down into weekly targets. So, and we have it, it's not as complex as it might seem. It's one of those things that helps to keep everybody on track. And then we meet weekly as a leadership team, kind of review where we are with our respective targets. And for those of you that are familiar with EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, or Traction, we use EOS in our business. So if you're interested in that, there's a great book. It's called Traction, but it talks about setting quarterly rocks and doing level 10 meetings. So we operate the business on those types of rhythms. And then as far as if something is off track, and one of my rules of life is that we never adjust the goals. So, COVID happens, right? Half of our company travels. What are we going to do? We had 60 shoots canceled in 1 week. Like, that was an unexpected event without a doubt. And I saw a lot of people just essentially write off 2020 and say, we'll try again in 2021. I mean, my rule is always that we don't adjust the goals. We change the action steps to get there, right? So we had a model previous to this that was relying heavily on an event-based model. Obviously, we see what's happening with events over the last several months. So you just have to take a different approach. But I think that those types of adversities lead to a lot of innovation and creativity. So I see firms making a lot of progress and putting in a lot of great technology in place and putting in operational efficiencies that perhaps they may have never done or would have taken much longer had it not been for an event like this. So there's always a way to get there. It's kind of like our mantra here, but but we don't adjust the goals. We just change the action steps of how we're going to get there if things are off track.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Brian, I had a question for you regarding branding. And for personal injury attorneys, sometimes, especially here in South Florida, it feels like there's a personal injury attorney on every corner. How do you ensure that you're not recreating or copying somebody else's brand? Because there's only so many ways that we can say that we're for the injured and fighting for justice and right to justice. So right. How do you ensure that you aren't replicating somebody else's?
So you've got a couple of things involved in that, right? The first is being unique to yourself, that unique value proposition that I was talking about. When you dig into that, right, when it's unique to you, you're going to be unique in the market based on that alone. So the way you represent that, it's funny. There was a time in my life when I was very suspect of the ability to put things into the world that we're sharing, like sharing my form, sharing our stuff. Like we have all of this, that the plaintiff's bar is incredibly generous to each other, right? We fight like hell to bring the client in, and the minute that they're in our doors, now it's a community project somehow, like everybody hated each other until they came into my office, and now we're all on the same team. I was very suspect of that, right? And there's guys that obviously, or people, not guys, but there are people in our community that definitely don't play ball like most of the people play ball. But truly, the majority of the plaintiff's bar that we run into is incredibly generous, right? So how do you create uniqueness and give away everything, right? It happens when you're true to yourself, and your brand comes through being true to yourself. That's number one. And number two is being very clear about the person that you want to represent and segmenting down in the market so that you're as narrow as you possibly can get to that person, right? So if you want to be the only trucking, 18-wheeler commercial trucking person, then go after that in your marketing message. Fighter trucking. If you want to be Peter in my office is a cruise and boating accident attorney. He's let everyone know, like, these are the only cases that I have. Now, marketing that doesn't mean that the only thing that I can give him is cruise and boating cases, right? We have more than just cruise and boating cases, and he takes care of a lot of that. But he has a majority of what he does based on the fact that he's personal branding himself. He's doing a good job with that in our community, and he's getting a very specific market for that, right? Same thing with Elizabeth and SSD, or Barry and workers' comp, or whoever it is that's personal branding something. Get very narrow and go after that market. And so you do that brand differentiation, and then you do your unique value prep, and you're going to develop market share above the ubiquitous messages of, if you're injured, call me.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Does that make sense, Michael? Do you have anything to add to that?
It's great.
All right.
Awesome. Anybody else have any questions? I'm going to go ahead and share the CLE on my screen right now, so everybody can take that down for anybody that needs to leave early. Here we go.
I will tell you that we did the experiment where Michael's group told us that we would get, 300,000 to 400,000 impressions on $1,000 of social ads, and we had 381,000 impressions on $1,000. So that number is not off.
Awesome.
The other thing, when you mentioned to Michael about getting your goals, I think that this is important, and I don't think that people do this, right? I think transparency is very important, and I think measuring is very important. So if you're going to have goals, you need to make sure that your team knows what the goals are, which goes back to the vision, which is the longest term goal, every single goal. And if you measure it, you can manage it. And if you publish it, you might achieve it.
Great advice. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any questions they want to add before I hand things off to Adriana?
I think, did they have one more?
Oh, sorry. Did you guys have more? I apologize.
Okay.
Save the best for last.
I apologize for that. Sorry about that. Do we want, I'll leave the CLE up for just another moment, and then whenever you guys—
You know what I do want to say this before Michael goes, because I think he's going to talk about stuff, right? This book, Value Proposition Design, is a great book to talk about what your unique value prop is, and it runs through some great messaging and, like, really cute, right? It says value proposition design on this side, where you open it up and it says, don't waste your time on a bad design, just get a good unique value, start there. So it just sends you right back. It's really cute. Anyways, it's a cartoon book, and it's very clear. It's easy to read. This guy Osterweiler is Osterwalder, Alex Osterwalder, and a group of business people write these strategizer series. They're excellent, right? And so if anybody wants any of that, I'll put that out there too. So if you're looking for that UVP analysis tool, that's another methodology of figuring it out. More significant.
Awesome. And Brian also included in the chat the books he mentioned earlier. So if anybody wants to go back and get those titles, please look in there. And whenever you guys are ready, you can take over the screen sharing. If anybody needs to reach out for the CLE, they can reach out to me directly. I don't mind sharing.
Perfect. All right.
On you, Mike.
All right, let's go ahead and share my screen. All right, I know we've got, I think, 10 or so minutes left, because I know we've got time for some Q&A, but this last one, if you remember nothing else from this, if you truly want to make your life easier and you truly want to grow, I will say that the single most important factor, and what I actually believe is the most important leadership competency that you have as a leader, is being able to get the right people in the right seats. If you can find, let me just give you this as an example. If you can find the best attorneys, the best paralegals, the best intake managers, the best office manager, all those people, and you find those people, you're able to attract them to your firm, and as a result, you've got the right culture and the right engaged environment, you have no problems. That's it. You're done. Checkbox, right? So, like, meaning that I've attended countless seminars, and I've seen people in different coaching programs and consulting programs where everyone's telling you, you've got to create processes, you've got to create systems, you've got to write all these down. It's like, we all know, right? And then every time I ask someone that's been through these programs, I'm like, well, do you have systems and processes? They're like, well, no. So it's not the fact that we don't know that we need to do these things. It's just generally the fact is you're not going to do them. Okay. So like meaning that maybe, and maybe you will, this is not like an absolute, but I will say that, maybe you're not the process person. Maybe in the business, you're the visionary. Maybe, you love going to trial and litigating cases. Maybe there's, other aspects of the business that you bring, a tremendous amount of value to. All you've got to do is find your complement. All you got to do, right? This is like one of the most challenging things in business to actually do. But to find the person who is obsessed with processes, who loves them. And guess what? Now you have processes in your business and you never actually had to create them. So this brings me to the idea of the fact that at the root of any problem, if you were to trace back any problem that you have, is people. And then similarly, at the root of any solution is also people. So let's say, I'm just going to give you guys an example. Let's say you've got an intake problem. You want your intake to be improved. There's a couple ways you can approach this. Okay. Option A, you solve it yourself. So meaning that, you may not be the intake expert, but you attend seminars, you learn, you dive into the intake team, you create all those processes, you improve it, you do all those different things. Or option B, which I think many of you actually might prefer this option, you simply find the right person to solve it. You find a great intake manager that already knows all those things, bring them into your law firm, you hire them, right? And now you've solved the intake problem. I know it sounds like simple, but it is at its core is actually a very simple concept. So for example, we host a very large law firm growth conference. 2 years ago, we were hosting the very first one. We had never hosted an event before. We did not know anything about putting together a 1,000-person event. We didn't know how to do the logistics. We didn't know how to deal with the AV, nothing. But I found this amazing human being a few years back who was putting on, well over 100 events a year. Brought her into our organization. Christy, she's amazing. And we no longer had to worry about the logistics. We no longer had to worry about any of this stuff because she brought that expertise with her. She knew exactly how to do that. And that freed us up to focus on the content, focus on the marketing. And as a result, that allowed us to increase our capabilities. So this really gets into how do you spend your time? And as we mentioned at the very, very beginning, we all got the same amount of time in a day, but the way in which you spend your time, how leverageable it is, the decisions you make is going to basically determine, one, whether you will achieve your goals or not, and two, how far you'll actually go. Because I see a lot of people that have just capped themselves out, they maxed themselves out, and on the current track, the current hamster wheel that they're on, they will continue to either bring in the same result year over year over year, same revenue level, same number of cases, or that will just steadily decline, right? But the time that they invest in actually working on their business, that will actually continue to stay the same. So they'll have diminishing returns. So the ideal way to spend your time is to be able to check these 3 boxes. One is what you're doing. Do you have superior skill at it? Okay, let's say processes, for example. You have superior skill that you were among the best at creating processes. Okay, let's say you do. Do you have a passion for it? Do you love doing it? So you could be skilled at something, but not actually love doing it. And that as a result should probably not be something you're doing. And then finally, does it give you energy? There are lawyers that I speak with that love being in the courtroom, that absolutely love it. And then there are others who are terrified and they want to be behind the scenes. So why would you send the person who is terrified and wants to work behind the scenes to court? Maybe you're the type of business leader who loves being in court, but you need someone to run the business. Hire that person. Maybe on the converse, you're the type of person who doesn't love going to court, but loves running the business. Hire the great trial lawyer, right? So that allows you to be able to free yourself up. And it actually, if it causes you stress and frustration, delegate it. So the best way to look at this is essentially write out all the things in terms of how you spend your time. What do you have superior skill at? What do you have passion for? What gives you energy? And on the other side, all the things that don't meet this criteria. And the very next person you hire is the one who frees you up the most. Literally, the exercise that you can do is on a sheet of paper, write down one side, what do you enjoy doing and what are you good at? On the other side of the paper, you write, what do you not enjoy doing? What are you not good at? That other side, the stuff that you don't enjoy doing and are not good at, that becomes someone else's job description. And there are people out there, I used to think this was fantasy, that love the things that you do not enjoy, that absolutely love it, that brings them energy, that they would love nothing more than to do all the things that you don't enjoy doing. And your ability to find them and hire them and bring them into your law firm is going to dictate the progress that you make. So we don't have time for this whole slide, but I will say that having a great hiring process is going to significantly increase your probability of hiring the right people and being able to vet them properly. Because like I said, before we had a process years and years ago, I was 50% right and 50% wrong. So meaning that it was nothing more than a coin flip. So, now we've got a whole process, everything from the job posting, calling the numbers, submitting an application, a phone interview, a test assignment. We give them, a whole array of assessments like the Wonderlic, the Colby, the Print, the final interview, all these different things that we treat this almost like a marketing funnel, if you will. And you get enough people at the top of the funnel, you vet them objectively every single time. And while this won't make your probability of finding the best candidate 100%, because you're still dealing with people here, it will increase your probability significantly beyond 50%, okay? So the final thing that I'll mention before handing this off to Brian is that, who you are surrounding yourself with in your business, even outside of your business, if you're a part of any peer groups, associations, anything like that, there are going to be the people, like I mentioned at the very beginning of this webinar, that they've got a problem for every solution. It's doom and gloom. There's nothing I can do. We're all going to go out of business. Autonomous vehicles are going to basically destroy our entire area of practice. And then there's other people that are talking about ideas and strategies and opportunities, and here's what they're working on. Same practice area, same market. One is thriving, the other one is suffering, okay? So we did a podcast recently where the speaker said that, look, suffering is optional. Sacrifice is probably essential, right? So you're going to have to sacrifice to, achieve your goals to some degree, but suffering in the process, that is optional. So if you can surround yourself with people who remind you more of your future and where you want to go than where you've been, well, then you're going to start to make a lot of progress. So Brian, with that, I hand it over to you to summarize all this. And then also we've got that vision planner that we promised.
Oh, that's true. So I just want to invite anybody, if they want to ask questions about that or stay on after or contact Michael or I about what he just talked about. I have found that to be so enlightening. We have used, at first I was using the Myers-Briggs. I don't know if you've ever used the Myers-Briggs, but it's a fun test, behavioral, test. Then we've used the DISC now for years and years and years. I used the Colby at your seminar 2 years ago. I thought that was a very enlightening test, and I have not used the Wonderlic. So I'm dying to figure out exactly why you're using both and how you're so I'm dying to hear about that. If anybody else wants to learn about interviewing employees and figuring out how to get the right people on the right seats on the bus, which is, like he said, the number one way to get to a place once you've got your vision and you've got your niche and you know what you want to do, find the right people to go there, and just the bus is a Tesla, man. It'll go on its own. Just get the right people in the right seats and that thing will drive itself. It's amazing what you can do. But let me let you do the vision planner, because I think we're getting close to 12:30. I don't want to take up too much time, and let them get this tool. You talk about it for a minute. And then if anybody has any questions on getting the right people on the right seats would be great. Defining your vision, defining your brand, getting your unique value prop. Hopefully we've talked about that enough that people understand it's unique to you. Don't think that it's something outside of you. Your business is unique to whoever's driving that business forward. So remember, it's your vision, and that vision's important. All right, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you've got the link right there. It's just, if you want that vision planner tool, it's a PDF. Just go to chrisvideo.com/vision planner. You can have it. That's it. We have a whole guide that shows you how to fill it out and how to do that type of exercise. And then there's a worksheet that's included. So you can do that. You don't have to become a Chris client or get a video or anything like that. You literally you can download the tool and use it. So we found it tremendously helpful. And I will say that if you want to endure a lifetime of misery, ignore the getting the right people in the right seats. I'll tell you, out of all of these concepts, I think that's the only one that might even rival vision, because, either the people around you are just a true pleasure to work with, that they're freeing you up, they're making your life easier, clients love working with them, that they are representing your firm in the right way, or you're just waking up every day dreading the fires you're about to have to put out, when you get to the office. So, there's a whole other section that you could talk about in terms of non-negotiables. I think that in general that many of us are just far too tolerant of the things that we will and won't accept. When you start accepting, less, you make more things non-negotiables. When you say we're world-class, and then you see something in your firm that does not represent a world-class firm, you see a stain on the floor, you see, this is a true story. I was in a firm's office a couple years back, and they billed themselves as the world-class law firm. And I walk in, and there's a stain on the floor. There's an attorney having an argument with a client in the waiting area. I mean, it was a mess. I did not feel that was world-class at all. But so there's saying it, and then there's living it. And if you have established a certain standard, and you see something in your business that is below standard and do nothing, well, then you've set the new standard. Okay, so it just recognizing that the way in which you make progress is going to be based on what you will and will not accept in your business, and that involves being willing to make some tough decisions and having some difficult conversations.
No doubt. That's such an important message, for your business. Such an important message. What you tolerate, you're giving implicit permission to. I mean, yeah, and that has been a hard lesson in my business, quite honestly. So at a disclosure level, we've tolerated things here with people that used to be employees here that we never should have tolerated. And we've had to excise that. And it's been incredibly, like we're in the worst business year of my life, right? This has been the hardest business year for people in my life. And we're going to have probably our best business year ever during that, because more because we got rid of a lot of things that we needed to get rid of, got focused, got a vision, got aligned. I mean, all of these things we talked about, our firm did in the last 2 years. Again, we started that way, and as it grew, I kind of Peter principled out on my capacities, and I had to do what you did. Like, all the stuff I'm not good at is over here, which is managing human beings. I'm a terrible human being manager. I'm just bad at it, and it's because I just think everybody should be able to do their own work, and I shouldn't, you're a professional and you're good. I mean, the vacation policy in my office used to be whatever you want. Whatever you want. It's all good. We're not keeping track. You need to take off from 2 to 7 today, whatever. Just make sure your work gets done, right? When you got 5 people, that works. When you got 48 people, it doesn't work any longer. So I needed a professional manager. We've got the best professional manager in Palm Beach County. I mean, our COO is second to none. She's hunted every week. She gets a job offer. I mean, so that makes the bus go forward fast, which is great.
Love it. Well, that's all I had. I know we've got, I think, like 1 minute left. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I also have IT that's beyond amazing too. I'm just going to put it out there.
I don't see any new questions in the chat, but I also wanted, for anybody that couldn't read the CLE number, it is 200464, N as in Nancy. If anybody wants to raise their hand, I'll be happy to help ask any questions. I don't see any hands raised, so Adriana, I will hand it off to you.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Brian. It's always incredible when we work, with people who help others who could be considered competitors to help us all be better. We really appreciate it. It was very, very helpful. I wrote a lot of notes down. I can't wait to read all the books, and I can't wait to get myself organized. And I feel a little bit of stress listening because I'm like, oh my God, there's so much I need to do. But it's always very, very helpful, especially during these times. So thank you. Again, please make sure you have the CLE code. And this was recorded, and we'll get with Michael and Brian to see if we can make it available to our members if you want to share it with your firms. But, I don't want to speak. We'd have to check with them first. And then next Friday, not this coming Friday, but the following Friday, we will have the great Jack Scarola on a webinar. So please be on the lookout for that invite. Again, thank you all for joining us once again. These webinars only work because of you guys, because of the participants. Let's continue to stick together during this time, and I look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Ashley.
Peace out, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, thanks for doing this with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.